I don't want to say that I have favorites on Ignition when we do our interviews with CEOs and important people in the industry, but when someone gives you a Maserati Levante to drive for the interview, you kind of do find yourself thinking, wow, this guy's really cool. George Minnie, Auto Trader, you've got off to a good start. I'm liking you already. Nice car, bud.
Thanks, Marius. An absolute pleasure. Needed to get you to drive something decent.
it's a nice way to start the day. Are you a petrol head?
I am. I unbelievably love cars, and I know a lot about cars. Probably not as much as some of the massive pros out there, but I think I'm slightly above average. I hope.
Well, I saw. I mean, you rolled in a pretty nice car as well. It's not just any old Jeep, it's the SRT8, so I can see there's some...
I love V8s, absolutely love V8s. And the reason I drive one is because I think, personally, I think that V8s are going to be a thing of the past in a not too distant future.
That for me is what is so sad. I mean, we know the trends. I mean, some countries are now even saying no more internal combustion engines, so you're probably hanging on to collector's item there, which is really cool. How did you get into Auto Trader in particular? How long have you been there?
I've been with Auto Trader for going on 14 years now, so a little bit part of the furniture.
I would say that's a long time, because what Auto Trader is now 25 years. Been around for a flipping long time, but so have you in terms of the industry. What's been the biggest change from an Auto Trader perspective in the industry?
So, as you know, the brand used to be a magazine, and it was a household thing. People had Auto Traders lying around on the coffee tables inside doctors' rooms, etc. And we were a magazine, and the height of our magazine publishing was around 2007, 2008. And then the internet started in South Africa. Started overseas first, but that gave us a little bit of a looking glass into the future. Yeah. And part of the strategizing and planning, we were lucky that we saw what was happening all around the world,
and could make that change, because it has literally turned things on its head.
It has.
You guys now are online only, and is that working? Are consumers embracing that?
Absolutely embracing it. The consumer has got so much information at their fingertips. I often say you can comparison shop anything, including cars. Yeah. And that transparency, where in the magazine days we could publish maybe 10,000 cars. Our printer said to us, you can't print more than 1,000 pages. Yeah. And the magazine sat at about 400 or 500 pages at the time. We could only publish 10,000 cars. Today we sit with over 70,000 cars online. So the consumer has this choice that they've never had before.
And at their fingertips.
Yeah. The consumer behavior has changed so much, whereas in the days of the magazine, consumer would page through the magazine, go visit 5 or 6 dealerships, almost like doing show house hunting on a Sunday, and then make the decision. The dealership was the source of the information, the source of the research, and the source of the answers to the questions. Whereas today, all of that's happening in the convenience of the consumer's couch.
But George, how has that affected in terms of how people purchase, that whole process that they go through now? Because, I mean, like I said, I've bought cars through you guys, I've sold cars through you guys. Are there still privateers selling vehicles through Auto Trader?
No, there's still a big private market. You must remember that for almost every car that's bought, there is a trade-in, which means that there's a private vehicle. So I always say the private market is in excess of 75,000 cars. Okay. We carry just on 2,000 private cars, and what we've seen is the likes of new business models come and disrupt the private market. A classic example is one of our customers, We Buy Cars. Yeah. They've disrupted the private model, so what we've done to respond to some of that disruption is we've launched a product called Auto Trader Marketplace, where because South Africa is so risky to buy and sell private cars, and that's the whole reason why the private market isn't as buoyant as it is in other countries. We've launched a product called Auto Trader Marketplace that assists the sale between the buyer and seller, and helps them do the paperwork, vets the seller, vets the buyer, vets the car, and then gives them a place to meet, because we've partnered with the Bosch Service Centres.
How hard is it to get good product then? Because people aren't moving out of their cars as quickly as in European models.
Yeah, so to get good product is, I think, easier today than it was in the magazine days, because there's just so much searchability and the availability of content online.
Yeah.
So I think getting product is not the problem. I think the consumer today is under financial pressure. You know, from coming out of 2008 and you know, the economy slowly recovering. It's not so much the stock availability that's the problem; it's more the financial pressure.
Yeah.
And South Africans are also very image conscious. You know, if
What your car says about you, I mean.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So the you know, the need and the want to drive a better car is always there, and consumers get themselves into a lot of debt.
I'm glad you spoke about content, because that is also something I've noticed where you guys have been very progressive in terms of that, because there is more competition for you now. How important is it that you now do generate content as well?
Well, I think content marketing dovetails quite nicely into how the consumer's behaving. As I said, in the magazine days, you would, you know, your source of information was the dealership itself. There wasn't information readily available as it is today. So what the consumer now does is does all of his searching online, and is becoming more and more anonymous. So nobody knows who he is because he's not giving his information away. And then the other phenomenon that's taking place is they're visiting less and less dealerships, making the decision online and just going to the dealer and buying the car.
Yeah.
So in that world, you have to speak to the consumer in different ways, and providing that content that they would have got out of the dealership back then is the way that we now provide the consumer with that information, because they want to sit on their computer and research the
But
car.
it's so important that you keep them coming to you first and not going to others. So, you know, when a new car's launched, they know, sure, we're going to go to you when we want to buy second-hand cars or whatever, but hey, we can also go to you for the latest news on the cars that come out, which is critical. And I mean, I look at the success story, Gymkhana Grid. I mean, your association there, Auto Trader really is expanding and reaching out to a different market, because that was massively popular.
It was unbelievable. We didn't even realize how popular it would be at the time when we got involved, you know, with Jim and Mike and the Gymkhana team. And it's a niche market. It's, you know, it's not the mainstream market, but there's still car and petrol heads there.
How old are you? I mean, I know, you know, I wouldn't
I
ask
have to
if
think
you were
about that for a second.
If
That's
you were a woman,
fine.
I wouldn't ask, 'cause I know women. How old are you?
I'm 44 this year.
Because it's one thing that I am blown away by when we do these insights, is how younger the guys in position of power are becoming, because I guess you in touch with the new market, being able to understand the digital platform and how you need to move the business into a new space.
Yeah, I mean, I think I straddle the demographics a little bit, being 44. But I think the younger market is more in touch with the internet, is more in touch with the digital environment, and we can kind of understand, because I was an adult when the internet started taking shape, in my early 20s. So the digital natives of today that are currently in their 20s and maybe early 30s, they don't understand that transition. I suppose they don't need to, but in order for me to have been part of the transition of Auto Trader, I think my age and demographic category was in the right place.
Yeah, because you needed to take them across on that journey. What do you do when you're not auto tradering? Have you got a hobby? Is it like, what is it?
I'm an avid pilot, so
seriously?
Yes, I've got a
remote control.
No, the
real deal.
The real thing, yeah. So I've got a little two-seat fixed-wing aeroplane called the factory's actually a South African factory, South African airplane called a Bushcat. Yeah. Used to be called a Cheetah, and on weekends I go and fly my airplane. Takes the stress away. Yeah.
Excited about what lies ahead, South African motor industry? I know it's been a tough 2017 into 2018. Things were looking a little bit more positive. I know things are a little bit different for you because the second-hand car market is booming. Are we in for a good time ahead, or still a few tough months?
I think 2018 is going to be slightly better than 2017. I don't think we're out of the woods, but we see the new car and used car market ebb and flow. It's almost like a boom and bust cycle. It swings to new car and then it swings across to used car. And at the moment we're in the swing to used. So I think from an Auto Trader perspective and from a second-hand car market perspective, we're in a really good place. But the new car market did did see some recoveries at the end of the last year. So maybe the future in 2019 is that swing back to new again.
You know, the worst thing is, I mean, our time's up, but I mean, I could probably just drive around the neighborhood talking to you all day just because, I mean, you're a nice guy to chat to, but let's be honest, the Maserati is also a bloody nice car to be cruising around.
This is an awesome car. I love it.
But George, thanks so much for joining us on Ignition on Insight, and thanks for the treat. I haven't driven one of these, which is quite rare. Most of the cars we've driven, this was a first. Nice one.
Absolutely pleasure, Marius.